Alright, I've been wanting to show you guys this game for quite a while now, and I finally picked up my own copy probably about 2 months ago, and I wanted to show it, and then I realized, well, Halloween's coming up in a few months, and you know what, perfect timing. This game's on 2 discs. It is 2 discs worth of gameplay. It's not 2 discs for 2 characters like some of the ones in the past have been. So let's pop this in and check it out.
Resident Evil.
Your identification number is WKD4496. Welcome to your new home.
Her name is Claire Redfield. We caught her trespassing in our Paris lab facility 10 days ago. She apparently infiltrated the complex looking for her lost brother, Chris Redfield, one of the surviving members of RPD's famous STARS teams.
Alright, so here we go. As you can see from the opening video here, you play on a secluded island. It's basically like a prison, and the zombie infection takes over the island, and you're pretty much trying to figure out how to keep your ass alive, and of course eventually get off the island. You meet some characters throughout the game, like this kid here. Can't remember his name right now, but he's reluctant to help you for the first while. Typical Resident Evil game, he doesn't want you, quote-unquote, slowing him down. Which I find funny, because you could kick that guy's ass so easily. He's just a punk kid, basically. So, here's the game, basically starting off. Plays like all your past Resident Evil games, but it's in a full 3D engine. This was unique to Resident Evil. This was, the first Resident Evil game to departure from pre-rendered backgrounds. But still play like the original Resident Evil games. This game came out for the Dreamcast, obviously, originally in February of 2000, and it remained a Dreamcast exclusive for about a year, and then a year later was eventually ported to the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube a few years after that. Code Veronica X is what the ports are called. They do have a few extra scenes, or a few extra, bits that were taken, or, kind of like a director's cut. There are a few extra things. So if you're a huge fan of Code Veronica and you want to see that, then you'll go back and play, the GameCube version or whatever. But this was a Dreamcast game. It was made for the Dreamcast, and like I said, for at least a year, it was a Dreamcast exclusive. You can see here the graphics are amazing, very, very good. The colors didn't come through quite as nicely as I wanted in the video. I had to brighten up the picture because the picture ended up being too dark. Obviously it's a dark game, but for whatever reason it recorded, it was almost pitch black. So I really had to crank up the brightness so you could actually see the picture. But The game looks amazing. For a Dreamcast game, year 2000, 9 years old. It still looks great. This actually looks better than the PlayStation 2 version. Not because the PlayStation 2 is not capable of better, but just because of course it's a port, and you port a game from a Dreamcast to another system. It's probably just a quick basic port job, and it did lose some of the sharpness in the picture and the color. I found it just something about it looks better on the Dreamcast. If you haven't noticed and you're a previous Resident Evil fan, we are playing as Claire Redfield. You play as Claire for most of the first half of the game, and then eventually you do play as Chris later on the second, basically by the time you get to the second disc. This game's a little bit harder than most of your Resident Evil games, I would have to say, especially if you've played Resident Evil 2 and 3 on the PlayStation. This is definitely more like Resident Evil 1. If you played Resident Evil 1 and you played through it, you have to be really, really stingent with your ammo. You cannot waste ammo. If you played 2 and 3, they really loosened up on 2 and 3. They give you lots of extra ammo and, health. And, in this one, you definitely have to save your health. And, of course, it has your typical puzzles, as you can see here. You've got to figure out how to make keys and where to use objects, and typical Resident Evil puzzles. Definitely wouldn't be a Resident Evil game without them. And like I said, this plays like a typical Resident Evil game. What I mean by that is you do rotate the character, and up is always forward, no matter which way the camera's facing. So it has the same controls as the first 3 Resident Evil games on the PlayStation. Even though it's fully 3D, the camera doesn't stay behind you. So it's kind of the best of both worlds if you like the original Resident Evil. And here you can see the health. Your health is actually really cool on this game, because in all the Resident Evil games, you never actually saw your health. On the screen as you played, you don't see your health or your ammo, and you always had to press start or bring up your inventory rather to see your health. And in this, you can just look down at the Dreamcast's VMU, on your controller, and right there on the controller, you'll see your health. So, if you're getting bitten by a zombie, you don't have to, bring up your inventory and wait for that second for it to load just to realize that you're not gonna die. You're actually, you're fine. It's nice just to look down on the controller and instantly see your health. Another little typical Resident Evil puzzle, move the blocks around to get to where you need to go. Very typical Resident Evil puzzles. And once again, that's what we love about these games. This is one of the best Resident Evil games that was sort of... I don't know, it's hard to explain, but if you played Resident Evil on the PlayStation, amazing game. And then if you played Resident Evil 2, it basically took everything from the first game and it improved it. The load times, the amount of zombies on the screen, the action was a little faster, and and it was a great sequel. You played 3 and it was, let's be honest, after you played 2, 3 was sort of just like the same thing over again. And in this it feels like a whole new game, despite, like I said, still controlling like the previous games. So it really was a great Resident Evil game. It is a little hard, like I said, but you really gotta be stingy with your ammo and your health. You have to be careful in this game. This game's not very forgiving. There's no easy mode. So, and as you can see, I'm dead and out of time. So see you guys later.